Wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have to spend all our time working for bosses who really just don't give a shit about us beyond our ability to produce profits for them? If we could instead spend our time doing things that actually matter to us. If, in other words, we lived under communism. Well, that's the dream, and we will get there sooner or later. But socialism isn't just going to happen because we think it's this nice, fanciful idea. Rather, socialism is going to happen because there are conflicts within the capitalist mode of production itself that necessitate a progression beyond its limitations. But what is this internal conflict that necessitates socialism? Well, if we want to understand that, we need to first ask, what is a mode of production? Today we're going to take a look at the answer to this question, which will undoubtedly reveal why communism is truly inevitable. Welcome back to Socialism 101, a series designed to help educate people with no prior knowledge on the basics of socialism and communism from an explicitly Marxist-Leninist and Marxist-Leninist Maoist perspective, with short and hopefully easily digestible videos. If this sounds interesting to you, then go ahead and hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell below. Now, we often hear the term capitalist mode of production, and we may think that this is just a synonym for capitalism, a fancier way of saying it. But if we prod and poke this term just a little bit more, we'll see that it in and of itself reveals the unsustainable nature of this system. So let's do exactly that. Get the notepads ready. At its most basic form, mode of production simply means the way things are produced, such as the necessities of life like food, housing, clothing, medical equipment, Nintendo, etc. Modes of production within any given society are comprised of two key aspects. 1, the productive forces, and 2, the relations of production. Have you written that down? No? You're going to regret that later. The first key aspect of the mode of production, the productive forces, is comprised of labour power and the means of production. Now, labour power is not just work, but rather the capacity or the ability to do work. To better understand this, think about the time when you're at work versus the time when you're actually doing work. If you work for an hourly wage, then you're selling your labour power to your boss. Every hour you're selling your capacity to do work. It usually doesn't matter whether you work harder or you do less actual work, you're likely still going to get the same hourly wage. This is because you're not selling your labour directly, you're selling your labour power, which, when you check the notes that you're definitely taking down, you'll remember is your capacity or ability to do work. And this causes a conflict between you and your boss because you're going to want to do as little work as possible, making it a better deal for you, while they're going to want you to do as much work as possible within that time frame, making it a better and more profitable deal for them. Now, the means of production refers to everything that's required in order to produce, including instruments of production, like the tools, machinery, and buildings in which we carry out our work, as well as subjects of production, which includes natural materials like iron ore, and also materials that have been filtered through previous labour, like that iron ore in its extracted form, which we call raw materials. So when you hear extremely based people saying seize the means of production, that's a call for workers to take control of all that good stuff. The tools, the factories, the raw materials, etc. And to use them for the common good, rather than to further line the pockets of wealthy private capitalists who do none of the actual work. You still with me? I know there was a lot of terminology there and I know it got maybe a little bit complex, but the good news is that it's all going to be worth it in the end and we're already over the worst of it. So you can basically relax now. Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about the productive forces, let's take a look at the second key aspect of modes of production, relations of production. We can easily understand this by simply asking, how do we relate to the process of production? Are we workers in a business generating profit for someone else? Or are we the owners of that business who do little more than simply hoover up the profits that are generated by workers? Under the capitalist mode of production, the relations of production separate society primarily into two classes: based workers, the proletariat, and cringe capitalists, the bourgeoisie. We either relate to production as workers or we relate to production as owners, more specifically, owners of the means of production. Now, there are various subclasses or strata among these two groups, as well as some other classes that we can get into in a later video dedicated specifically to class. But for now, we'll focus on the two main classes of capitalism, the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. Rather than being a system that benefits everybody equally, the relations of production that we see in capitalism are set up so as to primarily benefit the capitalists to the detriment of the worker. Make no mistake, the capitalist's gain is the worker's loss. The profit they're making is the wealth that you're creating. Never forget that. Now, we'll talk more about the exact process through which the exploitation of labour takes place in a later video specifically about the labour theory of value. But it should already be starting to become clear that there's a definite conflict between the productive forces on one hand and the relations of production on the other, between the interests of labour and the interests of capital, between the working class proletariat and the capitalist bourgeoisie. This conflict must be resolved. It's not going away. And in fact, we see that this conflict is actually intensifying as technology develops. With automation, countless jobs are going to disappear. The development of the productive forces will make the current relations of production upon which capitalism relies completely untenable, with wealth and resources concentrating into fewer and fewer capitalist hands, leaving us, the masses, out of work and unable to access life's necessities. And as nobody will have any money, this in turn is going to mean that the capitalists won't be able to sell their products to anyone. So now we're beginning to see how unstable and ultimately self-destructive this system is. And we're just scratching the surface. We're going to talk a lot more about how capitalism sows the seeds of its own destruction in upcoming videos. But don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom. We'll also talk about how we can solve these problems. I'll give you a hint. Class struggle. Lots and lots of class struggle. Today we've looked at the meaning of mode of production, including its two key components, the productive forces and the relations of production. We've looked at how labour power and the means of production constitute the productive forces, and the way in which the based workers and the cringe capitalists embody the relations of production under capitalism. Most importantly, we've looked at how the conflict between productive forces and relations of production forms the economic basis for social revolution, inevitably propelling us from capitalism and into socialism, making our apparently utopian dreams into a concrete material reality. Next time, the difference between personal property and private property. Get those toothbrushes ready. Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you found it useful in some way or another. If you're able to support this work, then please consider donating €1 or $1 per month over on Patreon, or a once-off donation over on Ko-fi. Links in the description box below. Thank you to Rare Hero, Cormac O'Brien, Dan Hunter, Red Corridor Raya, Christian Napales, Comrade Romano, Jason, Michaela Schmid, Mamarius Hex, Ryan Hodgson, Donald Krishleve, Gabriel Bailey, Lepanion, Hugh Jass, The Royal Way Condition, Jess, Ian McShay, Dan Hunter, Soup, Pontus, Colin Walsh, Hagen Mitchells, Evan Crossland, Burakua Gorilla, Roja, and Daniel Hamilton. I wouldn't be able to make these videos without yous, and I certainly wouldn't be able to pay my bills. Cheers everyone, agus slán go fóill.